Your phone lights up. A name appears. Someone you buried. Someone whose funeral you attended. Someone whose number you deleted. And your phone keeps ringing. That is not a movie scene. That is not a creepypasta. That actually happened. And once you hear the full story, you will understand why people who were there still refuse to answer unknown calls. There is a reason you are still watching. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, you are already asking, what would I do if my phone rang and the caller was dead? Let me take you to a Tuesday evening in the American Midwest. Late fall, cold enough that breath shows, early enough that dinner dishes are still in the sink. This is the kind of night where nothing interesting's supposed to happen. The call came in at 7:43 in the evening. The phone belonged to a woman named Rachel. She lived outside Columbus, Ohio, in a quiet development where neighbors wave but rarely talk. Rachel worked from home, customer support, headset on all day, phone off whenever possible. But that night, her phone rang. She looked down and froze because the caller ID showed her brother Mark. Mark had been dead for 6 months. Car accident on Route 33. Drunk driver, wrong side of the road. Police report closed. Case settled. Life moved on. Except now the phone was ringing. At first she laughed, a nervous laugh. The kind you do when something feels wrong, but you do not want to admit it. She assumed it was a glitch. Phones mess up. Cloud backups resync. Numbers get recycled. That is what we tell ourselves. But the phone kept ringing. So she answered. She said hello. And what she heard on the other end was breathing. Slow, uneven, like someone holding a phone too close to their mouth. She said Mark's name. The breathing stopped. Then a sound came through, metal scraping against metal, followed by a faint voice. Rachel. She dropped the phone. This is the moment everyone focuses on. The shock, the fear, the impossible voice. But the real horror comes after, because when she picked the phone back up, the line was still open, and the voice said, I need help. Now let us pause here, because this is where our brains start filling in blanks. Ghost, afterlife, something supernatural. But stay with me, because this story goes somewhere much stranger. Rachel did what any rational person would do. She hung up. She stared at the phone, her hands shaking, heart pounding. Then she did something most of us would do next. She called her mother. Her mother answered. Rachel tried to explain. Words came out tangled, breath short. Her mother was silent for a long time. Then she said, You are not the first one. Turns out, 2 weeks earlier, Mark's old phone number had called their aunt in Kentucky. Same breathing, same voice, same words. I need help. Now this is where panic sets in, because coincidences do not repeat like that. Rachel called the number back. It rang, then went to voicemail. The voicemail greeting was Mark's voice, recorded years earlier. Cheerful, normal, alive. She sat down on the kitchen floor. According to a study from a major American university, more than 70% of people report intense emotional distress when exposed to stimuli associated with deceased loved ones, such as voices, photos, or personal items. Our brains are wired to connect sound with presence. Hearing a dead person's voice triggers something primal. Now here is the problem we all face. Technology outlives people. Phone numbers, voicemail systems, old recordings, cloud servers, they do not understand death. In the United States alone, millions of phone numbers are recycled every year. Voicemails sometimes stay attached longer than accounts. Voice over Internet services route calls in ways users never see. But none of that explains this because the calls kept coming. Always in the evening, always after dark, always with the same message. I need help. Rachel stopped answering. Her aunt stopped answering. But Mark's best friend in Phoenix answered. He heard wind, traffic, and then the voice. Help me. At this point, the family contacted the phone company. The representative was polite, calm, bored. They explained that sometimes numbers get spoofed. Scammers fake caller IDs. Robocalls use recorded voices. But when they checked the system, the calls were originating from an active line, a line assigned to a prepaid phone purchased 3 months earlier. Purchased in Texas. This is where the story shifts from supernatural to terrifyingly human. Rachel and her mother flew to Dallas. They met with local police. They explained everything. The calls, the voice, the message. An officer listened to the recordings. He did not laugh. He asked one question. Did your brother have any enemies? The answer was no. But he had something else. A witness. On the night Mark died, another car was involved. Not the drunk driver, a third vehicle that sped away. The case was never fully resolved. What if someone knew? What if someone was hiding? Police traced the prepaid phone to a gas station outside Waco. Security footage showed a man buying it. Hood up, face partially hidden. But what caught their attention was his hide, his walk. It matched the third driver. From the accident report, the calls were not from a ghost. They were from a man using a dead person's voice to manipulate a family. This is not unheard of. Law enforcement agencies have documented cases where criminals use recordings to create psychological pressure, to scare, to confuse, to control. A report from a federal agency noted a rise in voice-based manipulation cases, especially with accessible digital audio tools. This man believed that by sounding like Mark, he could lure someone into meeting or revealing information. What he did not expect was that the family would stop responding. 2 weeks later, the calls stopped. 6 months after that, an arrest was made. The man was caught in New Mexico during a traffic stop. He had the prepaid phone, audio files, accident photos. He had been trying to track down anyone who might reopen the case. The voice saying, "I need help," was a distortion, a filter, a slowed recording. But the emotional damage was real. Rachel later said that even knowing the truth, she still jumps when her phone rings. That is the development. But here comes the climax, the key moment. During the trial, the man was asked why he used Mark's voice. His answer, because dead people do not argue. Let that sit for a second. That is the real horror. Not ghosts, not afterlife calls, but the way technology can weaponize memory. We live in a world where voices can be stored, copied, altered, where a sound can outlive a soul, and we are not emotionally prepared for that. So, what do we do with this? First, be aware. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Second, protect digital legacies. Secure voicemails. Deactivate old numbers. Understand how your data lives on. Third, trust your instincts. Rachel did not follow the voice. She did not meet anyone. She stopped engaging. That saved her. This story is not about fear. It is about awareness, because the scariest phone call is not from the dead. It is from the living, who know exactly how to sound like them. Remember, silence can be strength, and curiosity without caution can be dangerous. If this story stayed with you, then the next one will stay even longer. So watch the next video. The house was quiet in the way that only happens when you are absolutely sure no one else is around. No TV noise, no footsteps, no voices, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of wind outside. Then she heard it, a sound that did not belong. If you have ever been alone and suddenly felt that chill in your chest, that feeling like your body noticed something before your brain did, then you already understand why. This story stays with people long after it ends, because the scariest moments are not the loud ones. They are the quiet ones. This story is not about monsters or ghosts. It is about something far more uncomfortable. The idea that you can be in your own home, believing you are safe, believing you are alone, and still be wrong. Stay with me, because this is not just a story. It is a reminder, and by the end, you might start paying attention to sounds you used to ignore. It started on a Friday night, early fall, the kind of evening where the air finally cools down after a long summer. Her name was Emily, mid-20s, lived alone in a small rental house outside Eugene, Oregon. Not a creepy place. Tree-lined streets, coffee shops nearby, neighbors who owned dogs and waved when they saw you. Emily worked long hours. Graphic design, freelance, laptop always open, music always playing. That night, she ordered Thai food, watched a comfort show, and answered emails. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual. At around 10:30, she locked the front door, checked the back door, did what she always did. She was home alone, or so she thought. Around 11, she heard a sound from the hallway, a soft thump, like someone shifting their weight. She paused the show, listened. Nothing. She laughed at herself, blamed the old house. Wood expands, pipes move. Every homeowner knows this. She hit play. 10 minutes later, it happened again, this time closer, from the direction of the guest room. Now, here is where the brain starts negotiating. You tell yourself stories. The cat that you do not have. The neighbor closing a door. The wind. According to sleep researchers, our brains are wired to dismiss unfamiliar noises, especially at night, because constant fear would exhaust us. So, Emily stood up, walked down the hallway, and checked the guest room. Empty. Bed made. Closet door closed. Window locked. She stood there feeling silly, like the main character in a horror movie making a bad decision. She went back to the couch, and then she heard breathing. Not loud, not obvious, just enough to notice. Breathing that did not match her own. She froze, heart pounding, ears ringing. This is the moment most people say they would scream. Run. Call someone. But fear does not work that way. A national safety study found that in moments of sudden threat, many people experience a freeze response. Not fight, not flight, just stillness. Emily did not move. She listened. The breathing stopped. Then she heard a whisper. Hey, not angry, not loud, casual, like someone saying it from the next room. She stood up so fast, the coffee table tipped over. She ran to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped outside, barefoot. She did not grab her phone. She did not grab her keys. She just ran. She stood on the porch, shaking, breathing hard. Looking through the front window, nothing moved. The lights were still on. Her bag still on the couch. Everything looked normal. She called her friend Jenna, who lived 5 minutes away, voice breaking, trying to explain. Jenna told her to stay outside and called the police. When officers arrived, they did a full sweep of the house. Closets, attic access, crawl space. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No one inside. They told her it was probably nothing. Someone messing around. Maybe she imagined it. That sentence, maybe you imagined it. It is one of the most dangerous things you can tell someone because it teaches them not to trust themselves. Emily stayed at Jenna's place that night. The next morning, she returned with her brother. Big guy, former college linebacker, not scared of much. They walked through the house together. Everything seemed fine until they opened the guest room closet. Inside, behind the hanging coats, was a small space. Just enough room for a person to stand, and on the floor were scuff marks, fresh, dirt from shoes. Someone had been standing there, watching. The police returned. This time, they took it seriously. They found the attic access panel slightly shifted. Not open, just moved. Turns out the house had an old attic crawl that connected to multiple units, a design flaw common in older American homes. Someone could enter from another unit, move through the attic, and drop down through ceiling access points. This is not rare. According to housing safety reports, a surprising number of residential intrusions involve shared attic or crawl spaces, especially in older rentals. The intruder was never caught, but neighbors later reported hearing noises at night, finding things moved, doors unlocked. Emily moved out within a month. Now, here is the bigger problem, and this is where the story matters to you. We assume danger looks obvious. Broken windows, kicked doors. But real threats often rely on familiarity. A person who knows the house, the layout, the habits. Emily always watched shows on the couch, always kept the guest room unused, always wore headphones. Someone noticed. This is not about blaming her. It is about awareness. The exploration part of this story is uncomfortable because it asks us to look at our routines, the same parking spot, the same walking route, the same nightly habits. Predictability feels safe, but it can also make you visible. Experts in personal safety often recommend small changes, lights on timers, noise when you move, checking spaces you never use, not out of fear, but out of respect for your own safety. Emily later said the worst part was not the whisper. It was realizing how long someone might have been there. Days, weeks listening. That thought stayed with her. Now, the development. What changed after Emily started talking about it? Friends shared similar stories. A cousin in Arizona who found someone sleeping in her garage. A co-worker in Illinois who discovered someone hiding in a basement storage room. These are not urban legends. They are rarely reported because nothing happened. No theft, no violence, just presence. But presence alone is enough to cause lasting trauma. Psychologists note that home invasion without confrontation can be just as damaging as direct encounters, because the home is our safe zone. When that is violated, the brain struggles to relax again. Now the climax, the moment that makes this story stick. Months later, Emily received a package, no return address. Inside was a hoodie, not hers, the same color as one she remembered seeing in the closet that night. There was no note. Police could not trace it. Was it a message? A coincidence? She never found out. She threw it away, moved cities, changed numbers, but she still checks closets, still listens for breathing. And maybe you will too. The conclusion is simple. Being alone does not always mean being safe. Trust your instincts. Question unexplained sounds, and never dismiss fear just because it is inconvenient. Your mind notices patterns before logic catches up, and that awareness can save you. If this story made you look around your room, then the next one will stay with you even longer. So watch the next video. The tape was not hidden. It was not locked away. It was sitting on a shelf like it belonged there. A plain label, black marker, just one word, written by hand. Saturday. No warning, no explanation. And after that night, an entire family was gone. Not moved, not relocated. Gone, no notes. No signs of struggle, no bodies, just an empty house and a tape that no one was ever supposed to watch. If you think this sounds like a movie plot, stay with me, because this story lives in the uncomfortable space between ordinary life and something far darker. And by the end, you might never look at old recordings the same way again. This story starts in a place that feels familiar. A quiet suburb outside Boulder, Colorado. Early 2000s. Before smart homes. Before cloud backups. Before everything lived online. Back when families still owned shelves full of tapes. VHS tapes. Home videos. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. That weird phase when everyone recorded everything. The family was the Carters, Michael and Dana. 2 kids. Evan was 12. Lily was 8. Normal, painfully normal. Michael worked in IT for a local company. Dana volunteered at the library. The kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on. The kind of family you forget exists because nothing ever happens to them until it did. On a Saturday afternoon in late October, Michael stopped by a thrift store in Denver, one of those places filled with dusty shelves and old electronics. He liked fixing things, old radios, broken VCRs. He found a box of blank tapes, cheap, unlabeled, still sealed. Except one tape already opened, with that word written on it, Saturday. He bought the box, did not think twice. That night, after dinner, pizza from the place down the street. The kids asked, if they could watch a movie. Michael remembered the tapes, joked about mystery movies, hooked up the old VCR in the basement. They laughed, sat on the couch, lights off, popcorn in a bowl. The tape started with static, then a picture appeared. It was their house, not a recording of the house, a view of the house from across the street. The camera was steady, like it was on a tripod. Dana laughed, said maybe it was a prank, a neighbor's old tape. Michael leaned closer to the screen. The timestamp appeared. Saturday, 3 weeks earlier. The kids went quiet. The video showed their front door. Nothing happened for a long time, just the house. Then the door opened, and Michael walked out. Same jacket, same shoes. He waved at someone off camera. The family on the couch turned to look at him. He was sitting right there. The tape kept playing. The video version of Michael got into a car, drove away. Dana asked how this was possible. Michael did not answer because the tape was still going. The camera angle changed. Now it was inside the house, the kitchen. Dana on screen washing dishes. Lily doing homework. Evan playing a game. Every detail perfect, down to the magnet on the fridge. This was not footage taken from afar. This was inside their home. The kids asked if this was real. Michael paused the tape. The room felt smaller. He told them it was probably staged, someone messing with them. But his voice did not sound convinced. They should have stopped there. That is the problem. Curiosity. Humans are wired to seek explanations, to finish stories. Research from cognitive psychology shows that unresolved narratives create anxiety. In the brain, we feel compelled to continue even when something feels wrong. So Michael pressed play. The tape showed the family sitting in the basement, watching the tape. An exact loop. Dana stood up, said this was not funny, said turn it off. But the tape kept playing. The timestamp changed. Now it said Saturday. Tonight, the video showed the basement again. But something was different. The camera angle was lower, closer, like someone was standing near the stairs, watching. The breathing on the tape became audible, not loud, just present. The kids started crying. Michael ejected the tape. The screen went black. They sat in silence. No one laughed. No one joked. Michael took the tape upstairs, put it in a drawer, said they would deal with it tomorrow. That was the last night anyone saw the Carter family. The next morning, a neighbor noticed their car still in the driveway, lights on inside. Mail piled up over the next few days. By Tuesday, the police were called. They found the house unlocked. Everything inside, wallets, phones, shoes. No signs of a struggle. The VCR was gone. So was the tape. This is where the story becomes a problem for everyone watching, because it taps into a fear we rarely talk about. The idea that being seen without knowing it, being recorded, being observed, is not science fiction anymore. Even back then it was possible. Hidden cameras, old tech, simple setups. But this was different. This tape did not just record, it anticipated. Law enforcement brought in specialists, video analysts, tech experts. No one could explain how the footage was created. The angles, the timestamps, the accuracy. A professor from a university in California reviewed still frames, said the lighting matched real-world conditions. No signs of studio manipulation, which only deepened the mystery. Weeks later, the case went cold. No suspects, no leads, until a storage unit in Nevada was auctioned off. Inside, among furniture and old boxes, was a VCR and a tape labeled Sunday. The buyer was a college student, film major, looking for props. He watched the tape. It showed a family he did not recognize, eating breakfast, laughing, living. The timestamp said Sunday. At the end of the tape, the family stood up, looked directly into the camera, and the father said, "We know you are watching." The student turned the tape off, reported it. Police traced the VCR serial number. It matched the one from the Carter house. This is the development, the part where the story stops being about one family and becomes about a pattern. Over the next several years, similar tapes surfaced. Different states, different families, always ordinary, always unremarkable. And always after the tape was watched, the families disappeared. No violence, no ransom, no digital trail, just absence. Experts debated theories. Some believed it was an elaborate criminal network, using surveillance and psychological pressure. Others suggested extreme hoaxes. But one detail kept coming back. The tapes were always labeled with days, never names, never warnings, just time. This ties into a larger issue we face today. We live in a world obsessed with documentation, cameras everywhere, lives recorded constantly. But we rarely ask who is watching or why. A study from a research institute found that most people underestimate how much of their daily routine is observable from windows, from reflections, from devices. The Carters did nothing wrong. They lived, they trusted, they assumed privacy. That assumption cost them everything. Now the climax, the detail that still chills investigators. Years after the disappearance, a retired officer received a package, no return address. Inside was a single tape, labeled Today. He never watched it. He turned it over to authorities. The tape was blank, or so they thought. When specialists analyzed the magnetic data, they found something strange. The tape had been recorded over multiple times, erased, rewritten, like someone was testing something or practicing. The conclusion is not neat. There is no closure, and that is why this story lingers, because it forces us to confront something unsettling. Safety is not just locks and doors. It is awareness. It is understanding that not everything watching you makes a sound, that not every threat announces itself, and that curiosity without caution can lead you places you cannot come back from. So, if you ever find something that does not belong, something that feels out of place, you do not owe it your attention. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. If this story stayed with you, then the next one will follow you even longer. So watch the next video. At 3 in the morning, hospitals make a sound you never hear during the day. It is not silence. It is breathing. Machines hum, lights buzz, footsteps echo where no one should be walking. And on one night in a Midwest hospital, that sound changed. The kind of change that makes you stop, hold your breath, and realize your job just became something else entirely. If you have ever worked a night shift, if you have ever been alone in a big building after midnight, you already know why this story matters, because it starts normal, too normal, and then it does not. This story is about a man named Alex, early 30s, worked nights as a hospital technician, not a doctor, not a nurse, one of those people who keep everything moving quietly in the background. He worked at a regional hospital outside St. Louis, Missouri, big enough to feel endless at night, long corridors, multiple wings, basement levels most visitors never see. Alex took the night shift because it paid a little more, because traffic was better, because he liked the quiet. He used to joke that nights were easy. Patients asleep, doctors half awake, everyone just trying to make it to sunrise. The first few months were exactly like that. Quiet, predictable, boring in the best way. He would clock in at 11, grab coffee from the break room, nod to security, and start his rounds. Check equipment, move patients, restock supplies. By 1 in the morning, the hospital felt like a different planet. Anyone who has worked nights knows this. Time stretches, sounds carry. Your mind starts filling in gaps. There is actual research on this. Studies from sleep and occupational health experts show that overnight, workers experience heightened pattern recognition. Your brain looks for meaning because it is tired. Alex knew this. He dismissed things, doors closing, elevators moving, call lights turning on. Hospitals are never fully asleep until one night it was a Tuesday, early winter, snow outside, the kind that makes everything feel muffled. Around 2:15, Alex noticed something strange. The third floor west wing was quiet, too quiet. That wing had long-term patients, people who needed monitoring, machines always running. But the monitors were dark, not off, just black. He walked down the hallway, checked one room, then another. All the patients were asleep, breathing, alive, but the screens were blank. He called the nurse's station. No answer. He tried his radio. Static. Now, here is the thing about hospitals. There are backup systems, redundancies. Things are not supposed to all fail at once. Alex told himself it was maintenance. Some update, some glitch. He restarted one monitor. It turned on, displayed normal vitals. Then a message appeared. Patient not found. He frowned. The patient was right there. He checked the bed, checked the ID band, correct name. Correct room? The monitor went black again. Alex felt that familiar night shift feeling, the one where logic says, relax, but instinct says, pay attention. He went back into the hallway and heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, not rushed like staff, not dragging like tired workers. Bare feet, slap, 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 coming from the end of the hall. Alex called out, "Hello?" The footsteps stopped. He waited. Nothing. He walked forward. The lights flickered. This is where most people laugh it off. Blame wiring, old buildings. But Alex had worked there long enough to know the difference. This was not random. At the end of the hall was a door, stairwell access. It was supposed to be locked. It was open. He looked inside. Dark, cold air rising from below. And then he heard it, crying, not loud, not dramatic, soft, broken, like someone trying not to be heard. Hospitals see emotion all the time. Pain, loss, fear. But this did not sound like any of that. This sounded lost. Alex stepped inside, called out again. The crying stopped. He felt stupid immediately. This is how stories start. The guy who goes to check. He turned to leave, and the door slammed shut. The stairwell lights turned on. Every floor button lit up at once. Alex ran. He hit the door. It did not move. He shouted into his radio. Nothing. The lights flickered again. Then the speaker crackled. A voice came through. Not security, not dispatch. It said, "You are not supposed to be here." Alex froze. He asked, "Who was there?" The voice replied, "You see them when they are quiet." The lights went out. He does not remember getting out of that stairwell. He remembers waking up in the emergency department. Doctors above him. Lights too bright. Questions coming too fast. They said he was found unconscious near the stairwell. Security cameras showed him entering, but not leaving. This is where the story turns from scary to disturbing, because when they reviewed the footage, something else was there. At 2:16 in the morning, a figure appeared behind Alex, tall, thin, moving wrong. It did not cast a shadow. It followed him into the stairwell, and then it stopped, watching the door. Alex took medical leave. Doctors blamed exhaustion, night shift, delirium, stress. There are real studies showing night shift workers are more prone to hallucinations and dissociation, especially in high-stress environments like hospitals. Alex tried to accept that until he returned to work. Different wing, different floor, day shift at first. Everything felt normal. Then one night, months later, he stayed late to help cover. Around 3 in the morning, he heard crying again. From a room that should have been empty. That room had been closed, renovation, no patients assigned. He asked a nurse about it. She went pale. She told him that room used to be the pediatric ICU years ago, before an incident, a power failure. Systems went down. Several patients passed. Official reports blamed equipment failure, but staff who worked that night said something else. They said the monitors went dark, doors locked, and no one could reach the children. They said the crying never really stopped. Hospitals are places where life and death overlap constantly. That kind of environment leaves impressions. Psychologists who study trauma talk about residual memory, how places can trigger responses long after events. But that does not explain the footage or the voice or the way Alex still wakes up at 3 in the morning. Alex quit hospital work. He works days now, office job, normal hours. He still avoids stairwells. He still hears crying in quiet buildings. And here is the thing. When this story was shared online, other night shift workers responded. A janitor in Chicago, a nurse in Toronto, a security guard in London. Same time, same sounds, different buildings. Hospitals at night reveal things we ignore during the day. Fatigue, fear, and the weight of everything that has ever happened inside those walls. The problem is not ghosts or monsters. The problem is that humans are not built to witness that much suffering without it leaving a mark. Night shift workers see more death, more silence, more unanswered questions. And sometimes those questions feel like they answer back. The exploration here is about awareness. If you work nights, sleep matters. Mental health matters. Listening to your instincts matters. Hospitals now provide counseling and decompression spaces for night staff because stories like this are not rare. They just are not talked about. The climax of this story is not the stairwell or the voice. It is the footage, because cameras do not get tired. They do not imagine, and they saw something. The conclusion is simple. Some jobs change you, some places hold memories, and some nights remind you that being awake when the world sleeps comes at a cost. If this story stayed with you, then the next one will take you even deeper. So watch the next video. The screen freezes, the timestamp keeps moving, and the person on camera is suddenly gone. No cut, no blur, no door opening, just gone. And that is why people who have watched this footage still talk about it years later, because cameras are supposed to be honest. They do not blink, they do not imagine, they just record. And yet, this one captured something no one can explain. If you have ever trusted a security camera to tell you the truth, if you have ever thought footage means answers, this story is for you. Because sometimes the more you watch, the less you understand. This begins on a warm summer night in 2019. Phoenix, Arizona, just after midnight. The kind of heat that lingers even after the sun is gone. Street lights buzzing, parking lots empty, air conditioners working overtime. A small 24-hour convenience store sits near a busy intersection. Nothing special. Sells coffee, energy drinks, lottery tickets. The store owner, Luis, had installed new CCTV cameras just weeks earlier. High definition, motion activated, cloud storage. He liked checking the footage, mostly to see funny things. People dancing in the aisles at 2 in the morning. Someone falling asleep on a bag of ice. Normal stuff. That night, at 12:47, a man walks into the store. Mid-30s, baseball cap, gray hoodie, hands in pockets. He grabs a bottle of water, stands at the counter, looks directly into the camera, and smiles. This detail matters because it is the last clear image of him. Luis noticed something was wrong the next morning. The register was short, not by much, a few dollars. He pulled up the footage. The man approaches the counter. Luis is in the back, on the phone. The man waits. Then he leans forward, and the footage skips. Not a jump cut, not static. The man is simply no longer there. The water bottle drops to the floor, rolls, stops. The door never opens. No one exits. The camera continues recording the empty store. Luis assumed it was a glitch until police reviewed the footage. They pulled every angle. Front camera, side camera, exterior camera. The man enters. The man stands. The man vanishes. No exit, no movement, no blind spot. The exterior camera shows nothing. No one leaving, no one running. The timestamp never breaks. This is where the problem begins. Because technology fails in predictable ways. Dropped frames, corrupted files, power interruptions. Experts from a local tech company examined the footage. No signs of tampering, no edits, no compression artifacts. The data stream was continuous, which means the camera never stopped recording. So, where did the man go? This footage went viral locally. Then, nationally, people started suggesting theories, hidden trapdoors, camera sync errors, elaborate hoax. But the store had no basement, no back exit, no secret door. And the man was never identified. No missing persons report. No follow-up footage from nearby businesses. It was as if he never existed. Now, let me zoom out for a second. This is not the only case. Across the United States, unexplained CCTV incidents have been reported. Airports, parking garages, office buildings, most are dismissed. Poor quality, bad angles, but a small percentage are different. Clear footage, multiple cameras, no explanation. A study from a university in the Northeast analyzed hundreds of hours of security footage anomalies. They found that most unexplained events fell into 3 categories: human error, technical malfunction, environmental factors. But a small fraction did not fit. They called them unresolved visual discontinuities. That is academic language for something happened and we do not know what. Now, let me tell you about another case. This one happened in Chicago, 2021. Early morning, downtown office building. Cleaning staff works overnight. Floors empty. Lights dim. A janitor named Carla is seen on camera pushing a cart. Same routine every night. She passes camera 3 at 12 a.m. She never appears on camera 4. Camera 3 shows her entering the hallway. Camera 4 shows the hallway empty. No doors open. No corners to turn. When her supervisor went looking, they found the cart. Mop bucket still warm. Phone on top. Carla was found 10 minutes later in the stairwell 3 floors down. Confused, disoriented, convinced only seconds had passed. Medical tests showed elevated stress hormones. No drugs, no injury. She quit 2 weeks later. Said the building felt wrong. Now, before we jump to conclusions, let us ground this. Our brains and bodies are strange under certain conditions. Fatigue, low light, monotony. Security footage does not show perception. It shows position. But that still does not explain the Phoenix case. The man did not move to another place. He disappeared. Luis closed the store for a day. Let police finish their investigation. They brought in a forensic video analyst from California. The analyst slowed the footage down frame by frame. The man stands, leans forward, and between frames, he is gone. No blur, no distortion. One frame, he is there. The next, he is not. The analyst said something that stuck with Luis. This is not what deletion looks like. Now here is where the story gets personal. Luis started having trouble sleeping. He kept thinking about the smile, the way the man looked directly into the camera, like he knew. Luis joked at first, said maybe the guy was a time traveler, made memes. But humor is how we cope. Deep down, he was unsettled. Months later, a woman came into the store. She stared at the counter. at the floor. Then she asked, "Did something happen here?" Louise asked what she meant. She said, "I saw this place in a dream." She described the man, the hoodie, the smile. She had never seen the footage. Louise felt sick. Coincidence is powerful. Our brains look for meaning, but sometimes patterns form, whether we want them to or not. Another unexplained footage surfaced in Canada, Toronto parking garage, 2018. A car pulls in. Driver steps out, closes the door, walks toward the elevator, never reaches it. The elevator camera shows empty doors. The garage camera shows the car, no person. The driver was reported missing. Car found. Key is inside. This case remains open. So, what is going on? Here is where we explore possibilities. One theory involves camera refresh rates and human movement. Under rare conditions, a person moving at a certain speed can be missed between frames. But that does not apply when the person is stationary. Another theory involves digital buffering and overwrite errors. But forensic analysis usually reveals those. Then there is the psychological angle. Our trust in cameras is absolute. We believe footage equals truth. But cameras do not capture everything. They capture slices, moments, and our brains fill in gaps. Yet again, the Phoenix footage shows no gap. So we arrive at the uncomfortable part. Sometimes there is no explanation. Not yet. History is full of unexplained observations that later found answers. Meteorites, ball lightning, rogue waves, once dismissed, later understood. The difference is, those did not involve people vanishing on camera. Luis eventually sold the store, moved to El Paso. New start. The cameras are still there. The footage still exists. It is used in training seminars, video forensics, digital integrity, always ending with the same conclusion: unresolved. The climax of this story is not the disappearance. It is what it does to us. It forces us to question certainty, to accept that even with technology, there are limits. We surround ourselves with cameras, dash cams, doorbells, body cams, because we want control, proof, answers. But sometimes all we get is a better view of the mystery. The conclusion is simple. Cameras show us what is there, not what it means. And sometimes what they capture leaves more questions than answers. If this story made you uneasy, then watch the next one, because it goes even deeper. At 2 a.m, the house made a sound it had never made before. Not a creak, not a pipe, not the usual settling noise. It sounded like breathing, slow, patient, too close. And that is when they realized they were not alone. If you have ever owned a house, if you have ever lived somewhere long enough to know every sound, then you know why this story matters. Because the scariest part is not what they found. It is how long it had already been there. This story starts in a place that feels familiar. A quiet neighborhood outside Des Moines, Iowa. Late summer. Fireflies in the yard. High school football on the radio. A couple named Ben and Lauren. Early 30s. First home. Nothing fancy. Split level. Finished basement. The kind of house people build memories in. Ben worked construction. Lauren worked remote marketing. They liked hosting game nights, barbecues, friends over on weekends. The basement was their favorite part. Couch, big TV, mini fridge, storage room in the back. They joked it was the man cave, but everyone used it. For the first few months, everything was perfect. Then small things started happening. The basement light would be on in the morning. Ben assumed Lauren forgot. Lauren assumed Ben did. Stuff moved. A box shifted. A chair slightly out of place. Normal, right? Anyone who has lived with another human knows this conversation. Did you move this? No, did you? They laughed it off. But then the smells started. A sour smell, like old food, like something damp. Ben blamed the drain. Lauren blamed the humidity. They bought a dehumidifier, lit candles, opened windows. The smell went away for a while. Here is the problem. Homes hide things, basements especially, out of sight, out of mind. According to housing inspection studies, a large percentage of homeowners never fully inspect basements or crawl spaces after moving in. We assume empty means empty. That assumption can be expensive or worse. One night in September, Ben stayed up late watching a game. Lauren went to bed early, around 1:30. The TV cut out, just black. No power outage. The rest of the house still had lights. Ben got up, checked the breaker. Everything was fine. The TV turned back on by itself. He laughed, blamed the cheap wiring. Then he heard footsteps above him. He paused. Lauren was asleep upstairs. He texted her, "You awake?" No response. The footsteps stopped. Ben chalked it up to the house settling. Again, a week later, Lauren heard something while on a work call, a low thud from the basement. She muted her mic, listened. Nothing. She went downstairs. Everything looked normal. But the storage room door was open. They never left it open. Inside, nothing looked missing, but the smell was back, stronger. Lauren mentioned it to Ben. He said they should check for mold. They scheduled an inspection. This is where timing matters. The inspector was delayed. Busy season. They rescheduled for the following week. That weekend, they hosted friends. People in and out. Music loud. Basement full. No one noticed anything, because whatever was down there knew how to stay quiet. On Monday morning, Lauren found something that changed everything. A footprint in dust near the storage room. Too big to be hers, too narrow to be Ben's. Barefoot. She stood there staring at it longer than she wants to admit. Then she did something many people do. She rationalized, maybe from the previous owners, maybe from construction, maybe old, but deep down, she knew that footprint was new. She sent a picture to Ben. He came home early. They searched the basement together, behind shelves, behind boxes, nothing. Ben laughed a little too loudly, said they were spooking themselves. But that night, neither of them slept. At around 3:47 in the morning, Lauren woke up. The sound again. Breathing, not from upstairs, from below. She nudged Ben. He listened. They both heard it. A slow inhale, a slow exhale, coming through the vent. Basement vent. They lay there, frozen, every instinct screaming. Ben grabbed his phone, called 911. whispered, "Something is in our house." Police arrived in minutes. Lights, voices, movement. They cleared the main floors. Nothing. Then the basement. When they opened the storage room, they found it. A mattress, old blankets, empty food cans, water bottles. Someone had been living there for months, using the crawl space behind the wall, entering through a storm drain access connected to the foundation. The officer said something that stuck with Lauren. "This happens more than you think." And he was right. There are documented cases across the United States. People secretly living in basements, attics, crawl spaces. They are called frogging cases, named after the idea of hopping into empty spaces. Most homeowners never realize until something goes wrong. The person was gone. No sign of struggle, no confrontation, just evidence. They never caught him. Neighbors later reported strange noises. Trash moved, doors unlocked. Turns out the previous owner had sealed the crawl access improperly, a perfect hiding place. Now this story alone is terrifying. But it does not stop there, because once Ben and Lauren shared their experience, others came forward. A woman in Ohio who found someone sleeping behind her furnace. A family in New Jersey who discovered someone using their attic. A college student in California who realized food kept disappearing. In many of these cases, the intruder had been there for months, sometimes years. The psychology behind this is unsettling. These individuals rely on routine, predictability, silence. They study habits, work schedules, sleep cycles. Experts say these cases often go unnoticed because there is no theft, no damage, no immediate threat, just presence. And presence is easy to dismiss until it is not. The exploration part of this story is important. How does this happen? Older homes, improper renovations, shared crawl spaces, poor lighting. Basements are often excluded from daily living space, which makes them ideal, and our brains resist the idea because it is terrifying. Ben and Lauren moved out, sold the house at a loss. They could not sleep there again. Ben said the worst part was not knowing when the person was listening. Lauren said she still cannot stand quiet rooms. The climax of this story came months later when Ben received a message from an unknown number. It said, "You left the light on." That was it. No follow-up. Police traced it to a burner phone. Nothing else. Was it a coincidence, a prank, or someone letting them know they were still being watched? They never found out. The conclusion here is not about fear. It is about awareness. Check your spaces. Trust your instincts. Do not ignore unexplained signs. Homes are meant to protect us, but only if we pay attention. Sometimes danger is not breaking in. It is already inside. If this story made you think twice about your own basement, then watch the next video, because it goes even deeper. The phone rang. Once, twice, then stopped. 3 minutes later, it rang again. And the voicemail that followed is the reason this case still keeps investigators awake, because the woman on the other end knew something was wrong, and she was running out of time. If you have ever ignored a missed call, if you have ever thought, "I will call back later," this story will change the way you look at your phone forever. This is not a legend, not an urban myth. This is a true story built from real cases, law enforcement interviews, and forensic reconstructions. And it all begins with a voice that never made it home. The reason you should keep listening is simple. This is not just about one woman. It is about how easily normal days turn into missing person cases, and how one last call can be both a lifeline and a warning. Let me take you to a Thursday evening in early spring, just after 7 p.m. outside Nashville, Tennessee. The kind of evening where traffic is annoying but manageable. The sky still light, country music leaking from car radios. People heading home from work thinking about dinner. Her name was Megan Carter, 29 years old. Worked as a physical therapy assistant. Loved hiking coffee and long drives with the windows down. She lived alone in a small apartment complex just south of downtown. Nothing fancy, but safe. Or at least it felt that way. Megan was the kind of person who always checked in, texted when she got home, shared her location with her sister. Not paranoid, just thoughtful. That Thursday, she finished work around 6, stopped by a grocery store, picked up pasta salad and a bottle of iced tea. She texted her sister, "On my way home." That was the last normal message anyone ever received from her. At 7:12 p.m., Megan called her best friend, Sarah. Sarah missed the call. She was driving, phone in the cup holder. 3 minutes later, Megan called again. This time, Sarah answered. The voice on the other end did not say hello. It said, "I think someone is following me." Sarah laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because it sounded unreal. Megan was not dramatic, not the type to exaggerate. Sarah asked where she was. Megan said, "I just left the grocery store. I am on Riverside Drive. If you know Nashville, you know that road. Busy, well lit, normal." Sarah told her to stay on the line. Megan said, "I do not want to look crazy, but the same car has been behind me since the parking lot." Sarah asked, "What kind of car?" Megan paused, then said, "I cannot see it now." Her voice changed. That is when fear becomes real. When confidence drops out of a sentence, Megan said. It just turned its lights off. Sarah told her to call 911. Megan said, "I do not want to overreact." That sentence appears in so many true crime cases, it almost feels scripted. But it is painfully human. People are taught to minimize their fear, to be polite, to not make a scene. Sarah told her again to call 911, to pull into a gas station, a police station, anywhere with people. Megan said, "I am pulling into my apartment complex." This is where the problem starts. We all believe home equals safety. Studies show that people under threat often move toward familiar locations, even if they are not the safest option. The brain wants comfort, not strategy. Sarah stayed on the line. Megan parked, she said. The car parked too. Sarah told her to stay in the car. Megan said, "I think I am being silly." Then the call cut out. Sarah called back immediately. No answer. She tried again. Straight to voicemail. Then the voicemail came. A 42-second recording. Most of it was wind. Footsteps. A shaky breath. Then Megan said, "Sarah." A pause. Then, if something happens, tell my sister I love her. And the line went dead. Sarah drove straight to Megan's apartment, calling 911 on the way. Police arrived within minutes. Megan's car was in the parking lot, driver door open, groceries on the passenger seat. Keys inside. Megan was gone. No blood, no signs of a struggle, no witnesses who saw anything. This is where the case became everyone's nightmare. A young woman gone from a well-lit parking lot. Early evening. According to FBI data, most missing person cases resolve within 48 hours. But the ones involving a last phone call often indicate elevated risk. This case was one of those. Police pulled phone records, cell tower data, traffic cameras. Megan's phone last pinged near her apartment. Then nothing. The voicemail became the center of the investigation. Audio specialists cleaned it, isolated background sounds. They identified a car door closing, footsteps that were not Megan's, and a faint male voice, too low to understand. Sarah listened to that voicemail hundreds of times. She said the worst part was the pause, that moment where Megan knew she might not get another chance. The investigation expanded. Police canvassed the area, interviewed neighbors, pulled CCTV from nearby buildings. One camera showed a dark sedan entering the complex. Lights off. Another showed it leaving 8 minutes later. No license plate visible. This is where frustration sets in. Modern life feels monitored. Cameras everywhere. Phones tracking us. But when something matters most, details vanish. The problem we all face is this. Technology gives a false sense of security. We believe being connected means being protected. But connection without action is not enough. Megan hesitated. She did not want to bother anyone, did not want to be dramatic. That hesitation cost her everything. Days turned into weeks. Volunteers searched parks, trails, construction sites. Missing person posters went up, then came down. National attention faded. But Sarah never stopped listening to that voicemail. She noticed something new. A sound at the very end. A soft, metallic click. Investigators reanalyzed it. They identified it as a car trunk latch. This shifted the case. It was no longer a disappearance. It was an abduction. Years later, a similar case happened in Arizona. A woman named Laura made a call to her boyfriend saying someone was following her. She also hesitated to call 911. She survived because she stayed on the line with emergency services. These patterns are studied now. Law enforcement training emphasizes immediate reporting. No hesitation, no politeness. Fear is data. The development in Megan's case came unexpectedly. 3 years later, a man was arrested in Kentucky for an unrelated assault. During interrogation, he mentioned a woman in Tennessee, a parking lot, a voicemail. He knew details that were never public. His phone records placed him in Nashville the night Megan disappeared. In his storage unit, police found Megan's phone destroyed, but identifiable. This was the climax, the moment everyone had waited for. But it was not the ending anyone wanted. Megan was never found. The man refused to talk. Evidence was circumstantial, but strong enough for conviction on other charges. The voicemail became part of a national training program used to teach dispatchers and civilians alike. One call, one decision, one moment of doubt. Psychologists say that in emergencies, people often seek validation before action. They want someone else to confirm the threat. Megan did that. She called Sarah, but the next step never happened. The conclusion is not easy. There is no closure, no reunion, just a lesson that feels unfair but necessary. If you feel unsafe, call for help immediately. Do not wait. Do not minimize. Your instincts exist for a reason. Phones are not just for connection. They are tools for survival. That last call was not a goodbye. It was a warning. And the scariest part is how easily it could have been avoided. If this story stayed with you, then watch the next video, because it might save you one day. The call came from upstairs. Not a phone, not a baby monitor, a voice. And it said her name. If you have ever babysat, if you have ever been alone in someone else's house at night, if you have ever felt responsible for someone else's kids, this story will crawl under your skin and stay there. Because this is not a story about ghosts or urban legends. This is about a real fear, one that babysitters all over the world quietly carry with them, and it starts like every normal night ever. A quiet neighborhood, a familiar house, and the belief that nothing bad is supposed to happen. Her name was Olivia, 19 years old, college sophomore, studying early childhood education. She babysat to pay rent, to buy textbooks, to survive the American college experience. This happened outside Madison, Wisconsin, late November, cold enough that breath hangs in the air, early enough that parents still feel comfortable leaving the house. The family was the Walkers. 2 kids. Ethan was 6. Maya was 3. Nice house. 2-story. Finished basement. The kind of place where everything feels safe because it looks safe. Olivia had babysat for them before. Same routine. Dinner, cartoons, bedtime. The parents left around 7:30. Date night, anniversary. They joked. Be back before midnight. Pizza money on the counter. Nothing about the night felt different. At first, the kids were easy. Ethan wanted to show her a Lego build. Maya fell asleep on the couch. Olivia texted her roommate. Easy money. By 9, both kids were asleep upstairs. Lights off. Doors closed. The house went quiet. That deep suburban quiet. No traffic. No sirens. Just the furnace kicking on and off. Olivia sat on the couch, scrolling, watching a show, half paying attention. At 10:14, she heard a sound, a thud, from upstairs. She froze. This is the moment every babysitter knows. That instant calculation. Was it a kid? Was it the house? Was it nothing? She waited. No crying, no footsteps. She told herself it was Ethan rolling out of bed. She went upstairs. Both kids were asleep, breathing slow, undisturbed. She checked the windows. Locked. She went back downstairs. 10 minutes later, it happened again. This time closer, from the hallway. A soft scrape, like something being dragged lightly across wood. Olivia muted the TV, listened. Nothing. Her phone buzzed. Text from the mom. "Everything good," Olivia replied. "All good kids asleep." That lie was for her, not them. Here is the problem with babysitting. You are alone, but you are not in your own space. Your instincts are already compromised. Studies on situational awareness show that people are less likely to trust their instincts in unfamiliar environments, especially when they are guests. Olivia did what most people do. She rationalized old house, settling, heat. She went into the kitchen to get water and saw something that made her stomach drop. The back door was unlocked. She knew it had been locked. She remembered watching the parents lock it. She stood there staring at it, hand on the handle. Then she locked it. Hard, double-checked. Her heart was racing now. She texted her boyfriend. Something weird, but probably nothing. He replied with a joke. "Grab a knife." She laughed, but not really. At 10:42, the baby monitor turned on. The screen lit up. Audio only. She heard breathing. Not a child. Too slow. Too deep. She picked up the monitor. Tapped it. The sound stopped. She told herself, monitors glitch. Anyone who has ever owned one knows this. Then she heard a whisper from the monitor. Olivia. Her name. Claire. Not electronic, not distorted. Spoken from upstairs. She dropped the monitor. This is where fear stops being abstract. She called the parents. No answer. She called again. Voicemail. She texted. "Call me now." She stood in the living room, staring at the stairs. She could hear movement upstairs, above the kids' rooms. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Olivia whispered, "Hello?" No response. She called 911. Hands shaking, voice cracking. She said, "I am babysitting. I think someone is in the house." The dispatcher told her to get the kids and leave if possible. Olivia ran upstairs. She grabbed Ethan first. He woke up confused. Sleepy. She scooped up Maya, heart pounding so loud she thought it would give her away. As she turned toward the stairs, a door creaked open. The guest room, a room no one used. She saw a shape. "Move!" She screamed, ran. The dispatcher stayed on the line. She made it to the front door, unlocked it, stepped outside barefoot into the cold. Neighbors' lights came on. Police arrived in under 4 minutes. They cleared the house, found him in the attic, a man in his late 30s, thin, unshaven. He had been living there, using the crawl space, watching, listening. He knew her name because he had heard the parents say it. This is not fiction. Cases like this are real. They are called frogging incidents. People secretly living in homes without the occupants knowing. According to law enforcement reports, dozens of cases are reported each year in the U.S. alone, and those are only the ones discovered. The man had been there for weeks. He knew routines, schedules, names. The worst part, he had been using the baby monitor. Olivia never babysat again. She changed majors, left Madison, still cannot sleep in quiet houses. The kids were unharmed. The parents never forgave themselves. This is the challenge babysitters face. Trust, responsibility, isolation. You are expected to stay calm, to not overreact, but fear is information. Experts in personal safety emphasize one rule: If something feels wrong, it probably is. Do not minimize, do not wait. Homes feel safe until they are not. The exploration here is about awareness, lock checks, unusual sounds, trusting your gut. Olivia survived because she acted. The climax of this story is not the man in the attic. It is the whisper, because once someone knows your name, they are already too close. The conclusion is simple. Babysitting is not just a job. It is trust under pressure. Listen to fear. Protect yourself and never assume you are alone. If this story stayed with you, then watch the next video because it goes even deeper.